Hello and welcome to A Day with the Car Driver, covering the summer 2014 season. I'm here with Day.
I'm here with Scamp.
Hello.
But I suppose that's self-evident.
Yes.
Well, we're finally getting to this because
we just finished the summer 2014 season, and we kind of put up on recording this podcast for a little bit, although it'll be just as on time as all the rest of them, but just a little inside baseball. We've actually delayed recording this one a little bit because we wanted to finally bloody watch When Marnie Was Here, which we just finished about 10 minutes ago.
Is there such a term as inside cricket?
Inside cricket.
Well, since this was originally based upon a British book.
Inside football.
Granted, at this point, let's face it, the folks who are good at cricket are not the English.
They won the World Cup.
Okay, so they're all right at it.
Yeah.
But the ones who are generally better known for it at this point.
It was considered a shock, let's put it that way.
Well, yes, I know.
Yeah.
That's why I said these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's probably not that many people listening, though, who care much about cricket, so we should probably go back to Marnie.
Marnie Was Here was, as is a number of Ghibli stories are, an adaptation of an old English novel, much like Howl's Moving Castle and Arrietty, The Borrowers.
Although I'll point out, Howl's Moving Castle wasn't that old. I honestly don't have any idea how old The Borrowers was.
It's pretty old, Borrowers.
What do you consider old, though?
Okay. Actually, no, I'm not sure.
See, the English novel in this case was written in 1967.
Yeah, I think Borrowers is a similar time frame. But
that's a little old, but when I hear old with books, I tend to think of something that's older than that.
Oh, more than a century old.
Yeah.
19th century.
But
yeah, so Marnie.
It was
about lesbian ghosts.
Oh, come on now. Don't say it like that.
It's about a girl who goes to the countryside because it's Ghibli, and it's all like, oh, woe is me, I am a depressed lesbian. And then
she's actually sent to the countryside because she's got asthma.
Yeah.
And she's been having trouble in the city with her asthma. So the doctor's like, maybe you can send her somewhere with cleaner air.
Yeah.
And her foster mother's like, oh, I know. I've got some cousins or something in the countryside. You can go stay with them.
Yeah.
So she goes to stay with them. And she's a pretty isolated kid. She doesn't really have any friends.
No.
She tends to be rather cynical.
But it's like early on, I was like, God, I feel like I'm watching Tomoko from Watamode.
I think she's a little...
Not quite that bad.
Tomoko's, I think, less self-aware, maybe.
Yeah. Tomoko hasn't realized that she doesn't like herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas our heroine spends a bit of time, her name is Anna, she spends a bit of time saying, I hate myself. She's kind of unusual in that regard for a Ghibli heroine, isn't she?
Yeah.
Because usually a lot of those heroines, they're not so blatantly,
They're usually very heroic figures.
Well, and they're not around saying, I hate myself.
Yes.
Even in cases where it's clear that the heroine is a little bit different and doesn't necessarily fit in super well, they're not usually quite that blatantly negative. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm thinking of something like Only Yesterday, where the heroine, who granted is an adult, it's clear that she doesn't quite have the same interests as her colleagues do.
Yeah.
But she doesn't dislike herself, and she's not negative about it. It's just like, oh, well, this is how I am.
Also not a teenager.
Well, that's what I said. Granted, she's an adult. But even Ghibli's younger heroines aren't generally quite so negative. I feel like the closest we get maybe is some moments in, what's it called? I Can Hear the Sea.
I haven't seen that one.
But I think that's probably the weakest Ghibli I've ever seen, too. Granted, it was made for TV, so it's kind of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah. So yeah, and then she goes to the countryside and then sees this old house. And it's like, oh, what's in the old house? And what's in the old house is the most beautiful woman she has ever encountered.
She runs into another little girl.
Yeah.
And they become friends.
Basically.
But it becomes clear pretty quickly that something's slightly off about the whole situation.
Yeah. It's this implication that she's not quite there in this old-fashioned house. It's all... and it does come across very clearly to me as this is like... young teenage girl is depressed because she hasn't figured out she's a lesbian yet.
Yeah, it does, which I'm not sure if that's what they set out to do, but it certainly comes across that way. Oh my god,
it comes across that way so... I don't know, that their enthusiasm for declaring their love for one another.
Now, granted, yes, she's 12.
Yeah.
And at that age, you know, it's really not that unusual for teen girls to... you know, be willing to say I love you to a friend.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit different than how boys tend to be.
No. I don't hate you.
Well, you're alright, I guess.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, in her case, it seems like she's intense about it to a degree that I don't think indicates it's a platonic sentiment.
I think it was the scene where they do the dance, where they go dancing and she blushes. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh no, I can't stop thinking about you.
Also, granted in her case too, the use of Eichterl, which is a bit intense for just like, we're friends, gal pals.
They wouldn't let me watch the dub. So
I just feel, it's... To me, watching stuff dubbed now, it feels like something's off because I'm so unused to watching animation that's in English.
I'd watch more if I didn't watch. I would watch dubs more often if most of my anime viewing career wasn't watching stuff as it comes out. I would go back. I'd watch more dubs if I was less.
Of course, now they do simul-dubbing.
Even they're several episodes behind, and they're only on
Funimation.
Yeah.
I thought High Dive had a few simul-dubs.
Yeah, they do
but
actually.
Crunchyroll doesn't.
I watched a bit of Tanya the Evil in German the other day.
Oh, well, yes, Crunchyroll's sometimes a bit down the line, but it's not simul-dubbing usually.
Nope.
Although I think they ended up, in our region, they do have the English dub for Rising of the Shield Hero.
Woo.
Yay, cool. Anyway,
so what do you think of Marnie?
Get back to Marnie, though. I thought it was alright.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly decent movie. I did not think it was one of Ghibli's standout efforts, however.
Yeah. I think the start was way too slow. Way too slow at the start.
Yeah, it did seem like it took a long time to get around to Marnie herself.
Yeah.
But...
I get they were building her character, but I felt they could have done that in like a quarter of the time.
Well, I mentioned that I thought the way they transplanted the story from an English setting to a Japanese one, I don't think they did it was a little bit awkward. Not hugely awkward, but some of the stuff to do with Marnie herself ends up becoming a bit weird because, oh yeah, that's the thing too, Marnie's a foreigner.
Oh yeah.
Some of the stuff about Marnie becomes a bit, in her family life, it just seems a bit off.
Yeah.
That it's
the timeline isn't
not off in the sense of, not off in a way that I think the film intended. It's like, okay, but why is this family of white folk, like, what are they doing hanging out in the middle of rural Japan anyway? This just seems strange. Like, why on earth would they come here in the first place? And then, yeah, it creates some weird stuff with the timeline.
Yeah.
Because it basically then means, well, you had a household of white people who I don't think are supposed to be German in Japan in World War II.
Yeah.
But they're not. Anyway, it makes it a bit strange. I don't want to give the whole movie away, though.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, yeah, but it definitely wasn't, because this is the same director who also did Arrietty, and I was definitely a lot more, Arrietty definitely hit a lot closer for me. But it has all the Ghibli attention to detail.
Yeah, I mean, the visuals certainly were pretty great.
It's very classic Ghibli.
Again, I thought it was a very decent film. It's just not one that I would count as one of their better ones. And
unfortunately, this is the last Ghibli movie they've made.
Yeah.
They haven't made one since. There was like Mary and the Witch's Flower, but that wasn't even Ghibli.
Oh, that wasn't Ghibli.
No.
And
it was this director.
The Robber Baron's Daughter Ronya.
I think
it's pronounced Ronya. That's a TV series.
Yeah, and it's a CG animated
thing.
Yeah,
and it's CG.
Yeah, there hasn't been a Ghibli movie since then.
Yeah, because The Wind... Well, although...
The Wind Rises
Isn't Miyazaki working on yet another film?
Apparently, he is. But
I'll admit, I wish he had... Oh, but isn't it unkind of me to say that a man his age he shouldn't be allowed to keep doing what he wants until the very end?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a bit... You get into the whole... you see this a bit more in sports, though, where people are like, oh, the former star who's just clinging on and is a ghost of what he used to be, and it's usually a he. And well, but why? Why are they frittering away their glory like this? Well, is it really our place to say how dare they just because they're not making us happy with their performance? What I mean is, it's not that you have to... Say on a sports team, your sports team, it's not that I'm saying you have to be happy that they're paying this person for old glory, but there's a difference between that and then saying how dare they want to keep playing, which I think is unfair. Anyway.
And that's Ghibli. Kind of sad.
Well,
really.
That was the summer 2014, folks.
All right. Well, move on now to like some of the TV series because there's some fun series to talk about here. So unfortunately,
I guess that's one way of putting it.
Who wants to have a right old bitch about Al Noah Zero?
Isn't it more for you to have a right bitch about it?
You actually saw more of it because I did. I know. Maybe we did watch.
I thought you finished the first season.
I finished the first season. Yes.
Yeah, we wouldn't have watched this together though. It's too early.
No. So yeah, for Al Noah Zero, I watched. So this is by the brand new studio Troika, which was set up for this, I think.
Maybe. And it had character designs by Takaka Shimura, which is interesting.
And the writing, the story was written by Butch Gen Noguchi, or at least, and then he wrote the script for the first 3 episodes. And like, they're not perfect. Main character sucks. But there's something to those first 3 episodes. There's a good story setup, engaging, then a big twist at the end of episode 3, and you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And what's going to happen is they do fucking nothing with it for the rest of the show. Aggressively shit main character who they decided to do the... Because the thing is, there's 2 main characters basically. There's Slane, is that his name?
Yeah.
Who is the most overdramatic, poor, love-struck teenage boy who's fallen for a princess and now will do anything to keep the princess safe, even if it is against the princess's wishes. He gets tortured in one scene, rather gratuitous scene, whipped. He's a very pretty boy as well. Poor Slane. Slane was the best character in that show.
You didn't keep watching the second season. I think you would disagree if you'd seen that.
Okay.
They tear up his characterization, basically.
Slane was always a flawed character. And the other one is Inaho, I think?
Yeah, Inaho.
Who is a robot. Not actually a robot, although I think he really became one.
No, it's more like he was robotically enhanced after almost being killed.
Yeah, but he was basically a robot anyway because he had no personality.
Oh, he was a terrible character.
Yeah.
Really, the heart of what's wrong with Al Noah Zero is Inaho, because even if in the first season there was stuff going on that you looked and you're like, wait, but this doesn't really make that much sense. If they had had a firmer character to center it on, I think people would have been more willing to go along with it. Inaho has no personality, and, I realize that gets said about a lot of these characters who are these very bland sorts, but he's the sort of character who makes other bland personalities look nuanced in comparison. He really does not have any personality.
But he reacts like blandly to everything. That's the thing, is like a character who's like generic with generic's face. If there's an explosion, they will go, "Whoa, an explosion!" Because that's what a normal person would do in the face of an explosion. If an explosion happens in front of Inaho, he just goes, yes. And
the other issue is too, he turns out to be this master pilot despite never having done it before. And he's just kicking butt of people who have way more training than he has ever had and who are older than he is, and it gets very boring. because none of the other characters are able to actually behave in a way that's, well, useful or decisive, because he has to be the one who saves the day every time. You know, there's adults in the show whose jobs are to engage in combat, who then have to look like they're complete morons who, I don't know, were asleep during their entire career to the point that the show starts, just so that Inaho can look super cool and competent, and it's really dull. No one else, so it's a mech show, and no one else in the show, I think, ever manages to take out an enemy.
I'm disappointed because it's set up. The first few episodes were pretty good.
Yeah, I'll even grant that the first few episodes were pretty decent.
Yeah, and this is also Gargantia from the previous season was kind of already sign of this, but this was definitely the time where it was like, okay, just because Butch Gen is connected to something doesn't mean it's going to be good. Did he actually write it? If no, then no. Then just give up. And that was that.
Now, of course, there's a second season, but...
Yeah, and that was bad too.
Well...
I don't feel like talking about it when it comes around.
Okay, well then, I guess I'll say at this point, I feel like, to me, the biggest piece of evidence for this show is crap. Even if I say most of it, the problem with Inaho was... in the final episode of the first season,
spoiler warning,
they're like, oh, we're going on secret mission, gonna go attack. Oh, yeah, because so in this...
I think I know what you're going to say.
It's Earth versus Mars, because Mars is, like, basically where all these... Really
Xeon. It's become Xeon.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And it's got this whole aristocracy, and meanwhile, Earth is, like, completely gone to shit, and... it ends up being Earth versus Mars. And the princess is a Martian princess. And she defects to the Earthlings side because she's like, oh my god, they're doing such terrible stuff to the Earthlings. Speaking of not much personality, she also doesn't have a huge amount, but she at least emotes in a way that's believable.
Yes.
Anyway, in the final episode of the first season, it's like, oh, we're going on this top secret mission. We're gonna, take out the Martians. Okay, and we gotta get the princess involved because, there's like this stuff to do with how the mechs that the Martians have, you can't operate them unless you are either part of the royal family or you've been given the power to by the royal family. I think aristocrats can as well, but, the commoners can't. So the way that they can transfer the power, the royal family can transfer the power to regular folk is by kissing them, because I guess saliva somehow does this. So they gotta get the prince... Oh, and that's the other thing. The royal family can disable your mechs. So they gotta get the princess into all the Martian mechs so she can disable them. And they're like, alright, okay, we're gonna come up with call signs. Princess 02. And I was like, what? This is a joke, right? Like, they're giving that call sign to someone who isn't the princess, right? Right? No. They have the princess who is really the only way they're ever going to win this war under the call sign Princess 02. And that's like, oh my god, how did you find where she was? And I'm like, this fucking show. What?
I remember, one thing that really annoyed me was I remember they fake killed the princess at least 3 times in season 1 alone.
Yeah, that was a thing too. Like...
the first time was like the first twist of the show.
They keep trying to do it as a twist too.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there like, okay, you've already done this twice. Why on earth am I going to believe you this time?
Yep. It was a show that didn't know what to do after a certain point and then just faffed around being stupid and ruining all his characters.
Oh god, I haven't even talked about how there's the man who's a soldier
who
has PTSD, and he drinks a lot during the show, and he finally is like, okay, I'll go to the doctor and try to get my PTSD worked out, and the doctor's like, okay, we're going to drop you into this simulation in which exactly the same shit happens that you went through that gave you PTSD in the first place. And that's like the first session of therapy. Understandably, he flips out. And then later on, the doctor is like, hey, you know what? If you want a drink to get rid of your PTSD, all right, let's booze up together. And you're like, what the fuck?
This doctor, do you have any qualifications whatsoever?
No, I'm just someone who survived. I did think there's a character who's introduced in the second season who is a bastard child of the Martian monarch, who she's actually a pretty decent character, but the show doesn't really seem to know what to do with her ultimately, so that was kind of too bad.
Did the princess in this show have like a helper who followed her around?
Oh yeah, Eddie.
And she drove a truck at one scene and couldn't see out the steering wheel?
Edelrichuo?
Yeah.
No, fans just called her Eddie, though. Yeah. Yes. And she was always be like, the princess!
Yes.
And people hated her guts.
Yes, I'm just a lot of the show's coming back to me now.
Anyway.
Fair warning, I'm not sure we're going to be super positive during this podcast. This is okay, I don't think it's the only season, but it's one of the only seasons from this year in which I have zero anime I like. I have zero anime to list.
I have one that I like, but it's also one that apparently no one else liked.
What is your one then? Let's just.
I actually thought Glasslip was fine.
Oh dear.
I really don't understand why so many people hate it, because Glasslip was a PA work show, and honestly, it's not that different from every other PA work show ever done. Okay, Shirobak is a little different, and I know Eccentric Family is a little bit different too, but. It was a boilerplate Glasslip. It was a boilerplate PA works. You got some teenagers and, we're going through a changing season of our lives and, nothing too earth-shattering. This one had a little bit of magical realism in it, though. And for some reason, people hated this show.
It has a score of like 5.3 on Mal.
I don't think it's a fantastic show, but the degree to which people loathe this, honestly, I don't get it. It's just, maybe compared to something like Hanairo or Tari Tari, maybe it's not as good if that's your sort of show. Please keep in mind, folks, I don't think either of those shows are good.
I like Hanairo-ish.
But to me, I fail to see what was the reason for people to despise this, because to me it just looks like more of the same.
I don't remember. I read the reviews so long ago. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't get it.
Did you read the reviews people were writing?
I mean, I must have. Yep, but I still didn't get it. Because I actually looked at somewhat recently. I was looking at some of the reviews on Mal, and I was thinking, I don't get it, though. You're saying that it was horribly written, but it just seemed like the usual PA work stuff. I mean, I sort of wondered if people had just gotten sick of it, but that doesn't seem to have been what the issue was for people. I do seem to recall there one thing I really didn't like in it was there's a character who's a girl, and she has a crush on one of the other girls, and the show just slowly but surely works to have her end up with one of the guys. And I didn't think that was handled super well, because the way it was handled, it sort of came off as, being gay is just a phase you go through when you're young, and then you realize that you were wrong, and actually heterosexuality is where it's at.
And you like this show?
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
Well, I guess what I'd say is I didn't think that part was handled super well, but it was also only a small part of the show.
Okay.
Anyway, it had lovely chickens in it. I liked that.
Okay.
The chickens in this show are fabulous.
So I suppose we should probably talk about the actual biggest anime this season. Well, I'd say this is. I'd say even more so than...
Akame ga Kill?
No, I think
that's what I mean.
Oh yeah, well no, the biggest show this season I think was
Tokyo Ghoul.
Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah.
This was... Actually, no, this was huge. The manga is fucking huge. And it's huge in Japan. It's huge in the West. Genuinely one of the most successful manga of the past decade. It's about... what's it about a kid who gets infected by something and he turns cannibalistic, and then there's all sorts of demon fighting.
Yeah, it's a horror show.
It's a horror show, kind of horror thriller type show. And the anime came out. The anime is
shonen horror.
Yes, the anime is definitely one of the most watched anime this decade. It's like very freaking out to see people who have seen like, oh, I love anime. I've seen, and they list 10 shows, and one of them is like half the time is going to include Tokyo Ghoul. Yeah, so many people have seen this. I saw one episode, I liked it, and then never went back to it. I'm so sorry. I really should go back to Tokyo Ghoul.
I haven't watched it because it's not really my sort of horror.
No, it's not. But one thing that's really notable about this is, so the way on a site like Mal or any place that reviews things like this, there'll be one show and then the sequel will be slightly higher because all the people who didn't like it dropped it. Mm-hmm. Tokyo Ghoul is the only anime I've ever seen in which every single sequel, without fail, is lower rated than the last.
Yeah, I remember people being very, very upset with was the sequel Tokyo Ghoul Square Root of A. Yeah. People felt that they bobbled it hardcore.
But every single season is lower rated than the last. When you go to, I think there's like 4 seasons. Because it's split into cores kind of thing. But yeah, like there's the 4th one on Mal. Like every single one of the top reviews is rated 1. People got so pissed off. I think it deviated from the manga.
I think it had to. But I mean, if there's nothing like the scorn of a fan who loved something and then watched it go off the rails.
One thing that was interesting, one thing I do like about the manga, having never read it, the covers are really good on it. You seen them? They're very like kind of watercolor drawings with just weird horror faces.
The manga continues to sell extremely well in the West.
One of the best, and yes, it is like usually tops polls when it was released at its heyday in Japan as well. Might even still do. I haven't looked in a while. But yeah, you also mentioned Akame ga Kill, which is it's just a shitty, edgy shonen action thing. It's like, oh look, oh we just killed all the characters. Oh, there's lots of blood. Oh, also tits.
Yeah, don't they start off by killing the entire cast?
I don't remember.
I think this might be one of those ones where
it's one of those ones that like young teenagers think is super edgy because it's anime and it's got tits and blood and.
It was huge at the time.
It was. I kind of
the manga sold pretty well in the West too.
I aggressively dislike Akame ga Kill. Whereas like Tokyo Ghoul, I have like time for. I want to read more. I want to watch more, and I just never gone back to it. Akame ga Kill, I have zero patience for.
Well, at this point, I'm not sure how much people actually consume Akame ga Kill in the West anymore.
Yeah, it was definitely big in its day.
I'm not even sure if the manga's still running.
Yeah.
But this also, too, to me, was one of the ones that people who end up ultimately only watching anime for a year or two.
Yeah.
This was something. Oh my god, this is the coolest. Oh. And then I guess, I don't know, nothing ever measures up in their opinion, so.
Yeah. So the other one I was going to say might have been the biggest, but probably.
I don't think this was actually.
Sailor Moon Crystal.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Terror and Resonance because you had it grouped.
Oh, yeah. Well, Terror and Resonance was the Noitamina anime this season, directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. With music by Yoko Kanno, actually. The music's very good. It's
not like the show wasn't.
No. So, Shinichiro Watanabe is technically doing Space Dandy at this time, but he basically gives every episode to a new director, so I don't know how much he was actually doing. Because the second season of that is airing at this time. But Terror and Resonance was a show about terrorism, basically. A deeply flawed show that wasn't as clever as I thought it was, I think is possibly the best way to put it.
I didn't end up watching any of it because the reviews of the first, or rather what I saw people saying about the first couple of episodes sounded pretty bad.
I thought it was smarter than it was, and it's the way it would solve mysteries were so obtuse that it made the mystery less interesting to follow. My memory of it is so
there's a pair of brothers and they're terrorists.
Yeah. And
then like a normal girl gets caught up in it, right?
Yes. But I feel like it wasn't as smart as it thought it was the biggest thing. It was trying to say things about terrorism and use a lot of like vaguely 9/11-esque imagery. But there's definitely people who really like the show. I think they're wrong.
Man, I haven't seen them.
Oh no, I definitely have. I mean, it looks good. I said Yoko Kanno music, so it sounds great as well. And there were definitely people at the time who were like, oh no, the deep themes of terrorism and its impact on society and so on. But I don't think it did it very well. I just don't think the show was very fun to watch.
I mean, I think I'd go back to saying, well, I'm not sure Shinichiro Watanabe handles... Maybe it's just better to say he doesn't handle teen angst well.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking Kids on the Slope. Mm-hmm. And also Carol and Tuesday, which is running right now. Some of the stuff there.
Yeah.
Not a super skilled hand at melodrama.
No. Maybe need to say, hey, go back to doing shows about adults, please. You were very good at that.
Hey, you've done, let's see, Jazz Cowboys, and Hip-Hop Samurai. Maybe you could do, I don't know,
well, there was R&B.
Europop Vikings.
You have basically described my dream anime right there. Europop Vikings.
Oh my god. It's basically what if Eurovision took place in medieval times.
I was thinking it was a cross between Vinland Saga and Initial D. Just like the boats going through, but while they played Initial D music.
God. That's dance music, though, not pop exactly.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
What if they made a show about Vikings that was entirely scored with ABBA music?
So Vinland Saga, but it's got like,
they're playing Waterloo over, yeah.
Anyway, I mentioned Sailor Moon Crystal.
Yes, this was huge.
Sort of.
It was huge, but it was also hugely disappointing.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Sailor Moon Crystal, its first episode, this got a global simulcast on multiple websites. Nico Nico, Crunchyroll, I think it was on YouTube. There's probably other ones I'm not thinking of.
Didn't it crash Crunchyroll?
Yeah, it crashed Crunchyroll because so many people were trying to watch it.
Yeah.
Which actually, the Cardcaptor Sakura sequel more recently regularly apparently did the same thing. But Sailor Moon Crystal, it's going to be a reboot of, well, it was a new adaptation of the manga that was going to stick closer to the manga, which it did for the most part, although actually in this particular iteration, it strayed the most from it. And people were really, really excited about it. And it was pretty bad.
The visual style was all wrong.
Yeah, so the way they adapted the character designs, it was very difficult for them to make anything look natural in it. If you've seen the Sailor Moon manga, then you're familiar with Naoko Takeuchi's designs. If you don't, quite frankly, you gotta make them a little more substantial if you're going to animate them. Because otherwise it's just, well, you know, like the worst moments of Holic with the noodle people, meaning the Holic anime?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. But because it's less stylized in visual approach, it feels a lot more off. Mm-hmm. So this was pretty high profile. People were extremely, extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did kind of spark, it maybe not spark, but it was definitely as a product of the Sailor Moon revival that seemed like it was happening around the middle of the decade. There was like a huge number of Sailor Moon stuff. Well, it's because all the ladies who grew up with Sailor Moon now had money.
Well, it's also worth pointing out we had the 20th anniversary. We're in the 25th anniversary. So a lot of milestone years happened with it. It's, looking at it, you do feel a sense of, how could Toei screw up so badly?
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of Toei's most profitable, franchises ever. And God, it's like they didn't really give it that much effort. I think people are rather taken aback.
I feel like it was more just, not that they didn't put the effort in, but that they just wasn't it delayed multiple times as well?
I don't remember.
I think it was. I think they just screwed up, like just whatever was happening. There was a fundamental flaw in how they were approaching the art from the off. I think maybe is the best way.
And if you look at Sailor Moon Crystal 3, which is actually the second season, because Sailor Moon Crystal covered the first and second arcs of the manga as in 25 episodes, and Sailor Moon Crystal 3 covers what was covered in Sailor Moon S, which is the Deathbusters arc of the manga.
Deathbuster.
Yeah, there's some great villain organizational names in that show. But, you talked about the character designs, and in fact, if you look at Sailor Moon Crystal 3, they changed the character design slightly, and they are closer to the original manga than the original anime had adapted those designs, but there's just something about the way that they changed the designs. It works better in motion than the original ones did. And in fact, a lot of the people who were very disappointed with Sailor Moon Crystal were much happier when Sailor Moon Crystal 3 came out.
Speaking of Death Buster, there's Death Gun.
Oh, God.
Sorry. So there are...
How dare you slander Sailor Moon with mention of that thing?
So there's a couple of sequels, but there's probably only two worth mentioning, partly because they were both huge, but also there was a bit of a gap between them. So there's the second season of Sword Art Online, which I think by this point the word had gotten through that Sword Art Online sucked and it was uncool to like. Still plenty of people bloody watched it though.
Oh God, tons of people watched it, but it was cool to be like, ugh, this thing is so crap.
I watch it every week.
Whereas I would say now that a lot of the people who are like, ugh, this show sucks and watched it anyway, are now in the stage of, well, look, it's actually not that bad. You see, because...
Yeah.
I say this in the summer of 2019 because they will restart Sword Art Online Alicization come fall. I think it's starting again in the fall. But I actually saw the first episode of this.
This is Gun Gale Online?
Yes. No.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'm mixing it up with Sword Art Online, Gun Gale Online. You were confusing me.
Okay.
Or I think it's just called Gun Gale Online. Anyway, that comes later.
Okay.
So yes, this is Sword Art Online 2.
Is this the one where Kirito's a hot lady?
I mean, I don't know that I'd go so far as to call him hot.
Okay.
But
does he wear hot pants?
No, he wears trousers.
Okay, maybe I'm mixing them up. Alright, never mind.
The new girl in the show wears shorts. Actually,
Okay.
her outfit is super stupid. In this one, it's like, hey, folks, remember how, like, a year ago, there was that game that tried to kill us all? Well, guess what? We have another one where you can go into a video game. Isn't that great? Except in this one, it's all guns. Oh, no, but Kirito uses swords. How will he cope?
Dual-wield gun swords.
I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember that there's a person in the game who's called Jesugun, and he's killing other players. And the way he kills other players is basically he shoots them using electrical outlets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yep. That's what's going on.
Does anyone get shot in Free Part 2, apart from your enthusiasm for the show? Am I wrong?
Anyway, look, even if you like Sword Art Online,
Yeah.
I feel like Sword Art Online 2 went into the beyond on the stupidity factor.
Okay.
But yes, Free Season 2 at Free Eternal Summer airs this season. Yeah, this is 6 episodes worth of material slathered across 13 episodes.
Yeah.
Which did a lot to kill my enthusiasm.
Oh,
This is really not a good sequel. It has its moments, and the final episodes are pretty decent, but there just wasn't enough content to have justified a full 13-episode series.
Maybe KyoAni was somewhat taken aback by the success of it.
Well, it's hard to not make more when it prints money, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, so they were taken back by the success of it and weren't sure what to do for a sequel. They hadn't have enough material. Or...
But could they really have been that shocked at it being successful?
You think not, but...
I mean, think of how huge the response was when they released the PV for free.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was a little different.
It's just, there's not enough stuff.
Yeah.
So I found it kind of a drag. And of course, I say this, and they've made more TV series and more movies. And
Yes.
I have a sense of... I really can't blame them for wanting to keep making something that does well, but as a fan, I do have a sense of, oh, for fuck's sake, is there really anything left to say at this point? I know reading some of the reviews of subsequent seasons, one of the complaints was the cast has gotten too big. Because what do? You keep piling more pretty boys on top of the pile because...
Pretty boys on pretty boys.
Yes, thank you, dear.
Yo, like we've had like this season saying this hasn't been great. There's been plenty of anime this season that like other people love. Like we mentioned Tokyo Ghoul, for example. But like Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun.
That was fine.
A lot of people really liked that show.
I liked it decently when I watched it. Oh, you did? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait, you prefer Glasslip to Nozaki-kun? God, there's probably people screaming at the thing.
I guess I liked them about the same.
Okay.
I know I skipped maybe a couple episodes of Nozaki-kun because I was bored.
Okay.
So, I don't know. It was funny. It was fine. I'm not one of the folks hanging around who's upset they haven't made a sequel. I don't know. It was fine. You know, it wasn't a great season, so...
It was quite vibrantly animated, I remember that.
Yeah.
So it and this other one that was actually really like well regarded at the time, Barakamon. Both that and Nozaki-kun both ran in Gangan Online, the brand new place to publish web comics, basically. Barakamon was about a kid... It was about a... calligraphy artist? Help me out here.
Calligraphist?
Calligraphy artist.
No, it's not called a calligraphy artist.
Calligrapher.
Yes, calligrapher.
Calligrapher who suffers from writer's block, punches an old man in the face, and then goes out to the countryside to rediscover his writer block. And there he meets a kid who like barges into his house and goes like, "What you doing? Whoa, I'm gonna throw rocks at you." I don't remember what the kid does, but like, and basically that's it. It's fun.
Oh, it's a spin-off of...
No, there was a spin-off of it.
Oh, that's right. There was.
And it wasn't very good. Yeah, people really like Barakamon. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's kind of... The kid is a lot like Yotsuba from Yotsubato, the manga that's never getting an anime. It's a lot of that appeal. Like, it's entertaining. Like, I liked this show, actually. Yeah, no, I'm kind of being unfair here. Actually, I did quite like this show. It wasn't super memorable, I guess. But, you know, the kid was fun. It was funny.
I thought you did take one issue with the fact that it, like a lot of other anime, and in fact, since we've talked about Ghibli, an issue you have with Ghibli at times.
Oh, is the kind of romanticization of the countryside to the point of like...
Everything will be solved if you move to the
countryside. Yeah. I think I gave this one more of a pass because it did seem very much like the guy needed to get out of the city. But, yeah, the show's fine. I know, actually I have nothing bad to say about the show.
Anna and Marnie she had to get out of the city because she was literally choking to death.
Okay, yeah, if you want to talk about something that's wrong with the city, how about air pollution? I used to work in a newspaper where that was a regular story.
Oh, let's see. There was Blue Spring Ride, which did decently, although I don't think anybody really remembers it.
It's a shoujo. It was one of those ones that, like, the shoujo manga itself was pretty big.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think it might still be publishing.
It seems like, yeah, shoujo anime don't...
Well, and this was one of the better...
received?
Better... No, that's not quite the right term. It got a better production than a lot of other shoujo adaptations did, and, you know, I struggle to think of what subsequent to this of shoujo adaptations got...
Ori Monogatari is probably the one. That's the one with the giant 2-foot tall guy.
What?
Do you remember Ori? That had a very good adaptation. That had a very...
Oh!
Yes.
It's not called Ori Monogatari, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, because I remember it as...
My Love Story or whatever it's called. Yes.
Yeah. Look, if you say Monogatari... If Monogatari leaves your mouth, I just assume it's something to do with...
Shaft. No, that.
Oh, did that get a very good adaptation?
It was a Madhouse one. I think it did look quite good, if I remember.
Okay, well, so there might be that.
Yeah, but this is the other one I was thinking of.
I think at this point it's safe to say that shoujo's getting a highly polished adaptation is a pretty rare event.
Yeah.
But yeah, this did well. I didn't keep watching it because it didn't really seem like my kind of thing. You have a girl and a surly love interest, which I don't really dig.
It sure is a shoujo romance.
Or rather, it's a particular type of shoujo that just kept getting adapted this time. Because I think not too long after this, you get like the Wolf Girl and Black Prince.
Oh yeah, a lot of this kind of stuff.
So totally not my thing. I think I probably saw the first episode, but that was it.
Did you watch Love Stage?
Oh, there's another one I watched the first few episodes of. I dropped it also for having a troubling love interest.
Was this was Yaoi, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it was. It takes place in the showbiz industry. And it involves a young man who is pissed and sick of getting cast in the girls' roles in everything. And one of the key moments early on is that when he was a little kid, he ended up getting cast in a little girl's role in a TV commercial with a little boy. I think in the commercial it's something like, oh, one's the flower girl and the other's the ring bearer. I don't know what the commercial's supposed to be for. And then, oh, here we are years later. And wouldn't you know it, he comes across the guy who was the ring bearer. And the ring bearer has grown up to be a guy who needs to go back to school to learn about consent. There is a lot of molestation early on in this, and that's why I stopped watching. Because I was like, this is super creepy. Oh, I think it's that oh, you know what, now I remember. They come back into contact in part because they decide to make a commercial that is like, oh, 10 years ago we made this commercial and I had these two little kids and now they're in it again, but they're the ones getting married. And the lead guy's ticked because it's like, how dare you? You're putting me in a wig and putting me in a dress all over again. This sucks. Yeah, and during the filming of the commercial, the guy's all like, bleh. I don't know how else to describe it. He's very handsy, and I think he kisses him without his permission. And everybody's like, oh, yay, this is just the way we should be making the commercial. This is fantastic. And I found the dissonance between those two things incredibly creepy. So I stopped watching it.
Yeah, we haven't got much else this season.
So there's Dramatical Murder, which was another one of these adaptations of a Nitro Plus
Otome game, yeah.
No. Otome, this is BL. But like with Togainu no Chi before it, for God knows what reason, they decided to adapt it as if it wasn't a yaoi game.
Yeah.
Which you want to say to him, who the hell do you think is watching this? Do you really think you're going to pick up people outside of...
Yeah. And gave it absolutely... It had one of the worst production values I remember of any.
The visuals were awful. So I did watch a couple episodes of it. But it was pretty bad.
Did your due diligence.
Yeah, I guess that's one way of putting it. There's also Shonen Hollywood.
Idols.
This was one of those idol shows that did want to try to examine a little bit more about the industry itself. So it takes place... It's centered around this musical theater that I think is called Shonen Hollywood. And it's the latest generation of performers at it. And, you know, I watched about half of this, and it was the sort of thing where I could sit there and say, like, yes, I can see they're trying very hard with this. You know, this is clearly something where they put a bit of thought into it. It's also horrifically boring.
You know the ending song to the one that I sing every now and then, the ending song to Osomatsu? 6 same faces.
Yeah.
That's what I think when I look at this one, because they sure all look the bloody same.
Yeah, it also had curiously low production values, at least visually. It was It was weird because we're so accustomed to idol shows being quite colorful. This had a fairly sedate color palette.
Apart from their
which
hairdos.
I guess really does match the fact that they were trying to, you know, more seriously consider, okay, well, but why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Why is this something you want to pursue? Why do people enjoy watching this? What do fans think of this? What happens when you lose your passion for this? God, it was so boring.
Oh, well.
They tried.
So hard.
But we have to... There is one more show we have to talk about. And this is actually one that I have a lot of feelings about, because someone, look, there's this show called Argevollen. It was a mech show. It had absolutely nothing new to say. You know, it made some vague gestures in the direction of something a little bit unique in terms of mech shows. Like, oh, what if a war occurs and gets manipulated into continuing because of the needs of arms manufacturers rather than because of a genuine desire for it by the, political entity. You know, and it has some stuff about, it has a teeny little bit about mechs that are piloted remotely. Although I'll point out that Gundam Wing went into that in the 90s. But it
Guilty Crown went into that.
It kind of gestures over toward it without ever really engaging with it. Anyway, Argevollen is a void of a show, is how I would put it. And I wouldn't have finished it except someone kept telling me that it got better every week that it aired.
I was so desperate for a good mech show. I saw one where there wasn't one. We've talked about this in these podcasts before. Mech anime this decade were miserable. It's just a miserable experience being a mech fan. If you like, unless you like Gundam, in which case there was a couple of good Gundams, and that was it. It's just such, because we've got even this season we've got Al Noah Zero, which is just another failure, and it was just non-stop this decade. Every mech show just failure after failure after failure.
Although I will point out that few were as big a failure as this.
No.
This is a show that it's per disc average, so, each volume averaged like 300 discs.
It was
which is pretty awful.
The animation went to pot by the time episode 4 came around, and got worse as it went on. It was just it was an anime original mech project, and they kept trying, and nothing good ever came out of them.
Was this Zebek?
Might have been, actually. I don't remember.
I think this was Zebek. But this was just not a good show. And the finale, it sets up like, oh, here's our sequel hook. Yeah. And you're like, how fucking dare you? How dare you even? How dare you? Yeah, it's a void of a show. It brings absolutely nothing new to the table, and it doesn't do anything with it.
It did have one good thing.
What?
The second ending song.
Oh,
God. So what would you like to explain to our audience why the second ending song...
Oh, God, I don't know even how to.
So the second ending song is a pretty trashy one in which it has the lady.
I mean, trashy I think overplays it somewhat because it's supposed to be a bit fan servicey, but you don't really see much.
Oh no, you see her in her underwear, but you see her take off her pants, and it times to the music. So.
And her lying in bed, but yes. you don't see tits, you don't see bare butt or crotch. It's really kind of tame in the grand scheme. It did remind me a bit of ending theme songs from the 90s, though.
Yeah.
Just the music and everything. In fact, it reminded me of, the music specifically reminded me of Gravitation.
Oh,
its ending theme.
And the song went da 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 da.
And hilariously, the singer subsequently went on to do the theme song for
Vampire Homes,
a very fantastic show.
Yes.
Anyway,
so of course we now, having watched this and experienced this together, now that song,
we did not watch it physically together.
No,
though,
we didn't. No,
because we were not living together yet.
Yes.
See, this is the thing. I kept dropping it, and then Scamp would say 2 weeks later, "Oh, this episode was great. You gotta watch it." And so I'd find myself fine, all right, I'll see. And I'd watch 2 more episodes, and I'd be like, oh, it has improved a little bit. And then the next episode, it would be back to the same old bullshit.
No, see, that's what I was always fine. It always got better, and then it got shit again.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have kept going back to it if you didn't keep telling me. If I'd had any brains, clearly, I would have just dropped it and never looked at it again. But nope, I finished this.
But now it's our striptease song, so...
Oh, God, don't put it that way. It's not a striptease song.
Da, 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 da.
Honestly, it's just our we're changing song. Like, oh, I'm getting out of my pajamas to put on my work clothes. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. See, now people are going to have to go watch it, because otherwise this doesn't make any bloody sense.
It's Argevollen ending number 2.
Yes.
We'll put it as the ending song for this episode. Cause that's
you know what? You'll just have to put a link to it, because I feel like it might be hard to find the animation on the internet these days.
And make sure when
Unless it's still... You know what? This might still be available on whatever website streamed it. I am pretty sure that Crunchyroll streamed this.
And when you go search the ending on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment that says, "Day with the cart driver brought me here," so more people come and listen to us. Anyway.
Is that like the equivalent of like, subscribe?
Subscribe.
Or,
notification squad. I don't know.
What's the third one?
Subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Do we really want comments?
I would love more comments. Anyway. And that's it for this thing. We'll leave you off, and you make sure on the... So it goes da 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 da
da da da, and that's when she slides her pants down and you see her not particularly... Honestly, it's like granny panties.
Yeah,
but,
it's pretty generic. Look, she's
a professional.
Yes. She's
a professional grandmother.
And so on that thing, you got to pull down your pants, all right? And here's the ending song. We'll see you next time.